Hello viewers, we welcome you to this presentation on community radio as alternative media. We have discussed the concept of community radio in Unit 16 of the course Media and Society. Today we shall discuss community radio as alternative media, and we will try to link the two and see how the elements of both are the same. This is how the presentation has been designed. We shall contextualize the discussion by looking at the various elements of alternative media in the beginning. Then we shall discuss the concept, nature and objectives of community radio. We shall also discuss the evolution and growth of community radio in India, how it has evolved over a period of time, and what is the present status of community radio. Then we will move on to discuss community radio as alternative media in detail, and we shall also look at some community radio stations in India before wrapping up the discussion. So this is how we shall proceed. Alternative media, as you may be aware, is a small scale independent grassroots media run by a specific community for the benefit of their own community. Thus we can say that alternative media is by the people, for the people and of the people. And as the very name suggests, it offers an alternative to the mainstream media. Alternative media, as we have discussed in the unit, can be any medium, whether it is newspaper, magazines, radio, television, films, even new media and different types of small media. Anything which offers another possibility to the mainstream media. Thus, alternative media serves as the mouthpiece of the marginalized sections of society. It is participatory, flexible and represents the local identity and culture by involving the members of the community. Now let us look at what is community radio. Community radio is people's radio, which reflects the hopes, needs and aspirations of a community. It serves a community which uses common resources for livelihood and has common development issues and concerns. It provides a forum to them to share their views, problems of a community, drawing upon their active participation. Community radio is confined to a small geographical area of 5 to 10 kilometers, depending upon the low power transmission. The outreach of some community radio stations can be slightly more than 10 kilometers, depending on various factors. It is known by various names: popular or educational radio in Latin America, rural or local radio in Africa, public radio in Australia, and free citizens radio in Europe. It is also known as development radio and cooperative radio. Thus, you can see that it derives its name according to the objectives and the driving force behind it. Now, looking at the objectives of community radio, information, education, and enrichment are the primary objectives of a community radio station, and through which it aims to promote development, social change and good governance in a specific area. It represents the local identity and culture by involving members of the community. We shall look at it in greater detail in subsequent slides. However, it needs to be mentioned that in achieving these objectives, community radio does not compete with public service broadcasting such as All India Radio, Doordarshan and so on. Rather, it plays a complementary and supplementary role. When we look at the evolution and growth of community radio in India, it has evolved over a long period of time. Various committees, say Chanda Committee, Varghese Committee and PC Joshi committees recommended the introduction of local interest programs with participatory approach all over the country. And as per these recommendations, first local radio station was set up at Nagarcoil, Tamil Nadu in 1984. It was followed by 5 local radio stations in different parts of the country. And the aim of these radio stations was to use broadcasting as the mouthpiece of local community to enrich their lives. However, these local radio stations were a part of nationwide network of All India Radio, in which were manned by urban educated professionals who had their own understanding of what should be broadcast to the local people. These stations were not participatory and were not rooted in the ideals of community. As a result, these could not emerge as community radio in the real sense of the term. When we look at the beginnings of community radio, we have to mention a landmark Supreme Court judgment on 9th February 1995. This judgment was given by Justice P.B. Sawant and Justice Mohan, which changed the rules of broadcasting in India. The judgment said that the airwaves were public property. An Indian citizen has fundamental right to impart as well as receive information. This is important, right to impart as well as receive information, because so far it was only receiving information. The right to impart information was also given via this judgment. And it also said that they must have access to broadcasting for this purpose. Thus, this judgment served as a watershed and laid down the foundation for community radio in India. Around this time, in 1996, a strong movement to promote community radio took roots, in which a group of development communicators and activists formulated the Bangalore Declaration, which stressed the need for community radio. Similar other initiatives were also taking place in Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Jharkhand and Gujarat, and all these initiatives played an important role in the community radio movement in India. Initially, the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting allotted time slots to community groups on FM radio stations for programming on local issues, in which they could buy airtime and purchase airtime and go ahead with the programming. In December 2002, government announced a policy for granting license for community radio station to education institution. It was limited as campus radio. In 2004, government expanded the scope and ownership of radio beyond educational institution to include non-profit organizations as well. And this new policy was implemented in 2006, which allowed NGOs and agriculture universities also to apply for community radio license. Thus, you can see that community radio gradually evolved from using airtime from a local AIR station to campus or educational radio and community radio. All these developments led to an increased interest among broadcasters and paved the way for greater participation of civil society in setting up more community radio stations in India. Now, if we look at the present status, over a period of time, the number of community radio stations has increased manifold. As of March 31st, 2020, there are a total of 289 operational community radio stations in India. Out of these, 141 are being operated by NGOs, 17 by Krishi Vigyan Kendras, and 131 by educational institutions, including universities, state universities, schools and colleges in the government and private sectors. And it is very encouraging to note that the percentage of NGO sector has grown over a period of time, which we shall see in some of the tables. So you can see in this table the present status of community radio. NGOs have 141, which amounts to 48%, more than 48%. Educational institutions have 45%, and Krishi Vigyan Kendras have almost 6%. Now, if we look at the state-wise distribution of community radio, almost each state has representation of civil society groups in CR sector. Uttar Pradesh has the highest number of CRS with NGO sector, closely followed by Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh. Telangana has 11 CRS, out of which 8 are with the NGO sector. Odisha also has a large representation in NGO sector, as out of 15, 8 are with the community radio sector. You can look at this table. This has been culled out from the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting website, and which has the entire list of various community radio stations in different sectors. So you can refer to it whenever you want to have more detailed information. I had done a study in 2012, and in which I found only 45 radio stations in the NGO sector, as you can see here. In many of the states, there was not a single community radio station in the NGO sector. So there is a big leap from 45 to 141, as you can see. This table is able to include only 136, as 5 states which were not earlier have been included in the present list. These are probably Arunachal Pradesh, Tripura, and some other, Sikkim, and some other states. So you can check the website for a better understanding of the growth, the number, this distribution of community radio centers in stations in India. Before we proceed to look at community radio as alternative media, let us revisit some of the elements of alternative media so that we are able to link it with community radio better. Alternative media, as we have defined, is by the community, for the community and of the community. It caters to a specific, well-defined local community. It is democratic, participatory, voluntary and flexible in nature. It focuses upon local issues, drawing upon the local talent, very important, as we shall find in community radio sector that local talent is involved in a big way. Interactivity is an important element of alternative media. Now, let us look at some of these elements in the light of community radio. Participatory. Community radio participates in the life of community and the community also participates in the life of the station. When I say that, what do I mean? I mean that farmers, youth, women and other community members are involved in the selection in the different processes which are involved. Say for example, selection of content, programming, scheduling and even managing the station. Depending upon their interest and whatever the experience they have or their qualifications, they are involved in the different section of community radio station. As per the latest guidelines, at least 50% of the content should be generated with the participation of the local community for which the station has been set up. But you will be surprised to know that many community radio stations almost entirely depend on the content generated by the local community. And through such involvement, people decide and articulate their communication needs and priorities themselves. So, this participatory approach promotes a sense of belonging as well as infuses a sense of ownership among the community members. They perceive the radio station as something of their own, something which they can access and utilize for airing their grievances and also seeking redressal. Voluntary and non-profit. A community radio station generally works with a small team and with limited resources, and most of the team members are volunteers who share the work. Local bodies such as Gram Panchayat, Block Development Officer, district officials, local teacher, doctor, medical practitioners, they all are involved in program generation apart from the community members. This motivation and involvement of each member of community contributes towards the success of the station. Now, I have said that community radio is non-profit. It operates on low budgets and does not have any commercial or sectarian interest. As per the recent guidelines, limited advertising and announcements relating to local events, local business and services and employment opportunity have been allowed. But the maximum duration of advertising is restricted to 5 minutes per hour of broadcast. And in some cases, wherever FM radio station is in operation, this advertising limit may be further restricted. And the revenue generated is utilized for the operational expenses of the community radio station. So this is how it works. Focus of development. We have been talking about that they articulate their own hopes and needs and aspiration. Apart from what they need, what they want, what they need is also given. I'll come to that in greater detail. Suffice to say here that the focus of a community radio station is on health, nutrition, agriculture, rural development, irrigation, sanitation, hygiene, education, both formal, non-formal, the economy of the community or the society in which it is rooted, environment degradation, environment conservation, social welfare, gender empowerment and day-to-day civic issues. So it covers a wide gamut of issues related to development. Now, emphasis on local. As a voice of the community, a community radio station gives ample scope to the local talent in content planning. Common people are roped in to share their views, experiences and concerns for common good of the community. People share their special skills and talents in maybe singing, storytelling, dramatics, gardening and so on. It is an excellent medium for sharing their success stories, how they have faced various odds in life and overcame them, so that they are able to inspire and motivate other community members. It is important to note that local language and dialects are used for the benefit of local community, and the schedule is kept flexible to suit the local needs. And it has been generally found that early morning and evening slots are preferred by local communities, because then they are relatively free from their work schedules. Interactivity, like any form of alternative media, is an important element of programming which enables a community to seek reply to their questions and queries from the block development officers or whoever, whoever is engaged in development process, so they can seek answers to their queries and redressal to their problems. Now, you may say, if community radio is so focused on local issues, does it work in isolation? Is it very inward looking, in the sense that it does not reach out to the whatever is happening at the national level or at the state level? So let me clarify that a community radio station does not work in isolation. It picks up important issues having bearing on their lives and interprets them with the local perspective. It makes a community aware and updates them of the national issues. For example, it gives publicity to various government programs such as Beti Padhao, Beti Bachao, Poshan Abhiyan, Yoga Day, so on and so forth, and makes them aware whatever is happening at the national level. It aims to improve the sex ratio in the region and focuses on nutritional status of women and children, as we have already said that it works on gender empowerment. So looking at all this, we can say that a community radio maintains a judicious balance between needs and wants. Let me spend a minute on what I mean to say needs and want. See, audience of any medium wants certain kind of programming. It could be entertainment, it could be anything, films or songs or anything for entertainment. But there are a few things which the audience needs, and there are many types of need, but we will talk about only two types of need: felt need and perceived need. Felt need are on the part of the community. They express their needs, that this is what we want, and perceived needs are on the part of the media planner. Now, in this section, I will look at some select community radio stations which have been in operation for a long time. Namma Dhwani. This radio station has been in operation for a very long time. It has been set up by Voices, an organization working towards the cause of community radio in India, in collaboration with Mayrada, an NGO in Budikot village in Kolar district of Karnataka. It is run and managed by the local community. Programs on health and family welfare, women empowerment, microcredit and watershed management, rural development and non-formal education are broadcast. Their signature program, Parth Prabandha, include letters from the listeners through which they provide feedback on the program, suggestions for improvement and local government issues that need to be addressed. Give an insight into people's likes and dislikes, because it's a two-way communication. It is just not broadcasting or narrowcasting. It is a two-way interaction. So through this program, they are able to get into people's likes and dislikes and their attention and what areas can be improved. As per the website, several local issues of the people have been solved as a result of discussions over radio. So this is the affirmative action which the radio has been able to achieve. Rudy No Radio. This is also a very well-known community radio. It is broadcast from Seva Academy in Manipur and reaches out to 40 villages within 10-kilometer radius. It is run and managed by a team of community women. Program are broadcast. It is a flexible programming from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. and generally there is a repeat broadcast in the evening from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. and this is kept flexible, keeping in view the availability of the audience sectors. It covers topics such as employment, income, nutrition, health, education, self-reliance, and how to make women self-reliant apart from, of course, environment, agriculture, housing, etc. It also involves the community during various festivals and even celebrations to motivate them. So this is how Rudino Radio works. Sangam Radio. This is also a very old and well-known radio, community radio, which was set up by the Deccan Development Society in Zahirabad district of Andhra Pradesh. It is country's first women-led community radio station. As per the website, I quote, it was born 20 years ago and was licensed to broadcast by the Government of India 10 years ago. What do they mean? Perhaps that for 10 years they were using other channels of communication, for example cable cast or through buying airtime from All India Radio, and then finally 10 years back they were given the license by the Government of India. It is owned, operated and managed by the peasant women from the margins of society who have no space in the dominant media, because this is how we are looking at community radio as an alternative media. People, community members, those at the margins of society, marginalized group who have no space in the mainstream media, they find their voice and articulate their own lives and issues associated with them. So the website also goes on to add, this is also the beginning of these community of the recovery of their stolen voices. Very important, the kind of focus they are placing on stolen voices. So to conclude, I can say that community radio is at the heart of communication and democratic processes within societies. It involves developments from the grassroots and brings the voices of the excluded to the center. Community radio is not just limited to producing programs and airing them. The objectives of community radio are much more broader. It reflects the needs, hopes and aspirations of the marginalized groups and provides a new media space to them. It is based on the citizens' right to disseminate knowledge and the citizens' right to know. The concept holds great attraction for communicator due to its inherent simplicity and appeal. And let me add that if a radio station is able to give voice to the voiceless and addresses some of their concerns by voicing them, by involving them and improving the quality of their lives, I think the role of the community radio will be more than served. So I will close my presentation here and suggest that those of you interested to know and more about community radio stations in India, please look at the websites of these radio stations and also the website of Ministry of INB, and which will give you much more details how these radio stations are being run and reaching out to the marginalized section of the community. So thank you very much. I hope you would have found the discussion useful. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much.